I had a question. And then a bearded dragon pooped on the table. So that threw me off guard. Something dark is coming. Jellyfish have radial symmetry, meaning the body parts are arranged around a central axis that allows them to detect danger and food from any direction. This is also very important for propelling themselves in the water.
Welcome to the Jellyfish Manifesto. Today we have Crystal from ReptiWorld, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, what got you into doing anything with reptiles?
Anything with reptiles, it was all the way back in my childhood. I was the little oddball that was chasing people around with garter snakes or trying to catch the little water snakes in the creek and catching turtles. I had turtles as a kid. Unfortunately, mine ended up dying. My sister's stayed alive until it got out of its enclosure and found it about 5 years later. It was just the shell, but no, I think it was the fact that I was a misunderstood person and reptiles are just misunderstood creatures and everything. Like I got along with everybody in school and stuff, and I was, a popular kid, but I still felt misunderstood. I still didn't feel like myself. And with reptiles, I had that connection because they was always misunderstood. A snake, oh my gosh, it's a snake. It's going to kill you no matter if it's a foot long or if it's 20 foot long. They're venomous. And that's not the case. Not all snakes are venomous. The most deadliest ones, I have 23 of them in my house right now. And they're not even venomous. They're constrictors. So that's basically what got me into it. It's just being a misunderstood person and the love for animals.
So what made you decide to start a business surrounding them?
That's just the simple fact of them still being misunderstood creatures. And a lot of people think that I raise and breed reptiles, and I don't. I actually rescue reptiles. 95% of my collection of reptiles is all rescued from people that either couldn't take care of them anymore or people that were neglecting them. Some of them were found in abandoned apartments and everything. Some of them came to me with cigarette burns on them and stuff like that. I just had to nurture them back to health. Really what I do is I'm an educator. I went and got certified. I'm a certified herpetologist, one of two in Shelby County. There's only 2 herpetologists in Shelby County. And a lot of even the wildlife people don't really know a lot about ball pythons or reticulated pythons. They just know about what's native to Ohio. And so I take my reptiles, I take several of them at a time, and I'll do school functions. I've done Girl Scout events. I've done campgrounds. I've done my expos. We educate people at the expos even. We encourage people that when you want to buy a reptile, do as much research as you possibly can before you buy the reptile. There's some things out there that you're not going to be able to find on the internet of what heat the enclosure needs to be at or the humidity levels that the enclosures need to be at. Each reptile has a different personality. Just because one ball python was nice and easy to handle doesn't mean another ball python is going to be. So it's just basically, that's what we do. We educate.
What would be your favorite reptile?
My favorite reptile of all time is the reticulated python, and I actually own 2 of them. I own a mainland reticulated python, and I own a super dwarf reticulated python.
So what separates that from other pythons?
They get significantly larger, and I love the giant breed snakes. I love the movie Anacondas and everything like that. So to me, with the amount of ball pythons that I do have, to me, they're almost like pet rocks. They don't really come out. They don't really do anything. Great first-time snake owners. They're great for them. They're great for kids and everything because they don't really like to be handled a whole lot. So it's great for first-time reptile owners. Now, once you get into the reptiles and you own more and everything, the more bigger you want, the more colors, the more patterns, the more unique it is, the more you want it. So I still have to say though, my favorite's the reticulated python. I love the monitors, I love the dragons, I love the geckos, but I love the giant breed snakes.
Is there a reptile that you like the least out of all the other ones?
Honestly, probably bearded dragons. And it's not because there's nothing wrong with bearded dragons. There's really not. It's just I've owned so many of them, and people do get them as first-time pet owners or reptile owners, and then they get bored with them. So they're also the ones that are most abandoned. They're the most neglected and everything, and they just kind of get thrown into my lap. But I'll take any reptile in if anybody doesn't take care of them or doesn't feel that they can take care of them. Like I've just gotten 4 bearded dragons dropped off in the past 2 weeks.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yep.
I like snakes. I don't think Eric's a big fan. I lived in Tennessee for a while.
Mm.
And there's a lot of like rat snakes down there.
Oh, yeah.
I love rat snakes. Because there's also a lot of copperheads.
Yes, there is.
But the rat snakes keep them away, which is nice. So everybody really wanted a rat snake to be living on the property.
Yes.
To deal with the copperheads and then a lot of like small pests and everything. I knew somebody down there that had pet chickens, and the rat snake would protect them from other snakes if they let it eat the eggs.
Yes. Yes.
So it ate a lot of chicken eggs. And
it's kind of like the garter snakes here.
Yeah.
And everything. The garter snakes are kind of like the rat snakes of Tennessee and stuff. The garter snakes will eat fleas, ticks, any bug in the ground because that's what they survive off of. And so when people find garter snakes in their yard, they want them out. But in reality, if you have a garden, if you have chickens, if you have, other animals that you want out there, you want those snakes in your yard to protect your animals, to protect your garden, because that's what they do. That's their job.
Yeah. I had a lot of friends in Tennessee that were terrified of the snakes, but the only one that was a concern was the copperhead.
Mm-hmm.
The other snakes in Tennessee are fine.
Yeah.
At least in the area I lived in. I think there's rattlesnakes in other parts of Tennessee and everything, but we had a lot of friendly snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, nothing concerning.
And we have venomous snakes here in Ohio too. Yeah. And that's a big misconception of people that live in Ohio, like down in Chillicothe and Hocking Hills area, Cincinnati area. They migrate from Tennessee, West Virginia. So we do have northern copperheads. We have timber rattlesnakes. Actually, I think it was last summer, me and my family went to Hocking Hills and we camped at, I think it was called Lake Hope. And my son, he actually went to go take the trash down to the dumpster. And I mean, we've seen multiple copperheads on the road that had gotten hit by a car or whatever. And hiking through Old Man's Cave, we've seen a couple copperheads and stuff. But my son, he went to go take the trash down to the trash bin. And where our campsite was in the shower house, it was downhill both ways. And he went down there and he comes running back and he's like, Mom, there's a rattlesnake down there. And I'm like, no, there's no rattlesnake down there. You're seeing things, or you're hearing like a leaf ruffle or something. Well, lo and behold, there was a timber rattlesnake underneath the dumpster. It wasn't a very big one and stuff. And a lot of misconception about rattlesnakes is they're out to attack humans, and and it's not that. Their rattle is to let you know that they're there. Yeah. They don't want to be stepped on. They don't want to be picked up. They don't want to be bothered. Kind of like some people in their houses, you don't want to be bothered by people knocking on the door or ringing the doorbell or anything like that. They're just protecting themselves. Typically when they strike, it's a blank strike. They're not going to shoot the venom into you unless they want to eat you. Just like a constrictor, they're not going to constrict anything that they know that they cannot ingest. So the rattlesnakes, the venomous snakes, any of them, they're not going to bite you to kill you. They're going to bite you to let you know, hey, you almost stepped on me. I don't want to die today. And that's what the rattles are. And that's what helps the rattlesnakes is the rattle. Now, copperheads, or not copperheads, but cottonmouths, you got the cucumber smell and stuff. And I had to explain that to my kids too. But most of the snakes out here and most of the reptiles are just out to protect themselves. And they're not trying to attack any human being. They're not trying to kill any human being. They're just protecting themselves. That's all.
Yeah, I would say our biggest issue was that they lived by creeks a lot. So you had to if you went swimming, there was a chance there was just a copperhead. So
Right.
you had to keep an eye on that. But I liked the snakes. I think snakes are great.
What was your first experience teaching at a school?
2 years ago, I taught down at Piqua High School, and I got more kids interested in wanting to become herpetologists than I thought that I ever would. The one girl, she came to me just like a girl at Indian Lake. It was called Indian Trail Resort. We did a show up there. She came up to me and she's like, "I'm not holding any snakes." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. I'm not here to make you hold any snakes. I'm here just to educate you about the snakes." And I took, I think, 2 ball pythons, a blood python, just a couple different species of pythons, along with my rat snake that I have, and bearded dragons and stuff like that, and leopard geckos. And by the end of the show, I made her comfortable enough with the education that I did in that 1.5-hour time frame. She had a snake around her neck by the end of the show. And that just melts my heart. You know, I love when I can get people out of their comfort zone to be able to put the snakes around their neck. Now, I don't expect anybody to put, you know, a massive 10, 12, 14-foot snake around their neck, but a ball python, absolutely. They love hanging out in people's necks. Hi, buddy.
Yeah.
Smart.
That's one way to do it.
That is a way to do it.
Some are potty trained to go on like you know how they have like puppy pads for
Mhm.
dogs. They have them for like animals, like smaller animals.
Yep.
And some are trained to do that, like little grass patches or something in their tank or whatever.
Yep.
This is beautiful. We're getting all this on camera.
Yeah.
There he goes.
That is a lot. That is crazy. Jesus, buddy. There's a small fella for that.
He's even making the little grunts.
So sorry to
It is fine. For the people at home, the smell is awful. Like it is bad. But it's okay.
the white is pee. They
Yeah.
don't have like liquid pee. It's
They're called urates.
it's called
Yeah.
urate.
Crazy. Okay. Well,
This
for the
is the
reptile
worst
episode, it's fine. It just smells weird.
It does.
I mean, it doesn't smell as bad as my kitten when he
I was about
poops.
to
So
say.
that's what matters.
Cats really smell bad.
Yeah.
I'm not a cat person. I love them being outside, but I am not a cat person.
Same.
And you're done. You're doing the army crawl. You're all done. That's him wiping himself.
Yeah.
So I got the most of it, so it's not all over the table.
Good job, buddy.
I had a question. And then a bearded dragon pooped on the table. So that threw me off guard.
Well, he's all done pooping now.
Yeah, he is.
He's posing.
Yeah.
He's proud of himself.
He's very proud of himself. He's like, I stunk the whole room up.
So do you do mostly like people bring you reptiles? Do you go out and rescue them? Or?
I've had some calls that I needed to go out and rescue and everything, but for the most part, people will contact me, whether it's them themselves or a friend or a friend of a friend, the police station, they'll get a hold of me, and I usually typically go pick them up. So, but people are more than welcome to drop them off too.
What was your first call with the police station like?
The first call with the police station actually was for somebody abandoning their reticulated python and ball python. He brought them to me because he needed to move out of his apartment or whatever. And I told him, I said, okay, you know, that's fine. I'll babysit them and stuff. But the first time that I have to feed the big one, you know, or if I have to do anything medically to it or anything like that, then he's going to end up being mine and stuff. And he said, okay, you know, wrote that out in text message and everything like that. And he was fine with it. 6 months later, he actually tried to come and get the snake. And the police department told him, you know, she's got all the documentation. She's got all the paperwork. She's got all this. And so the snake is hers. But as far as actually having the police call me for an abandoned animal or whatever, it's usually the landlord will contact the police will contact, somebody else or whatever, and then I get contacted. It's not directly through the police department, but they'll say that, the Shelby County Police Department or the Shelby County Sheriff contacted me and said that you're the person to get a hold of for this abandoned reptile or whatever. There was a couple apartments downtown Sydney that was being renovated, and there was a ball python and a bearded dragon. And the landlord had contacted the police department. The police department, I guess, did research or whatever, or knew somebody that I knew. And that's when they reached out to me, and they was like, hey, there's this abandoned apartment in downtown. There's a couple animals in there that are reptiles. We think that, would you be able to go get them? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Just give me the address and make sure the landlord's there and stuff. And I show up, the landlord's there, and ended up getting the bearded dragon and the ball python. They were severely neglected. They looked like they had been left there for months on end. No food, no water, nothing. Brought them back home, and I still have them to this day.
Jeez. It's awesome that you're like that person, though.
I love being that person. Sometimes it's irritating, especially with ball pythons. Because ball python, like I said, that's a first-time reptile owner go-to animal. And by time, some people were like, well, I don't have the time to take care of it, which that irritates the crap out of me too. Sorry for my language, but it does, because a ball python, a snake in general, depending on the size, you either have to feed it once a week, twice a week, or once a month. It's not that hard. You clean out their tank once every 30 days if you have the proper substrate in it. They're not that hard to take care of. They're not time consuming. You don't have to let them out all the time. You don't have to potty train them. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. It's the time consuming part is getting the tanks to the proper humidity and the proper heat. That's the main time consuming part. But yet again, people buy them either not knowing how big they're going to get, that they're not going to get that big, and then they lose interest. That's just simple facts, is people lose interest too fast.
Yeah. Kind of like they just go like the itch, and then
Yep.
they satisfy it, and they're like, oh, okay.
Yep. And that's how I ended up with most of my collection. I've got 42 reptiles in total, 23 of them being snakes, 6 different species of snakes. And the rest are turtles, tortoises. I got 2 Florida alligator snapping turtles. I bought that from my own shows, though. The guy didn't want to take them home, and he gave me a good deal on them. I bought 2 of them for $10. So
Oh, jeez.
they're a little over a year old now. I used to be able to fit both of them in the palm of my hand, and now I can barely fit one.
Yeah. We I had a friend that found one of the really big snapping turtles trying to get into his fence, and they picked it up and put it on a little wagon and wheeled it down to the creek because it was heavy. They're like, I can't carry it.
Yeah.
And they bite. So
yeah.
they had to wheel him down to the creek in a little like red wagon.
My brother owned this that before. He put one in the creek and put it in a wagon and brought it up to his dad's house.
Yeah. No, they brought him back down because they're like, oh, the dogs are gonna fight this
Oh yeah.
giant turtle,
And when they bite on, they can bite through things. I mean, they don't like latch on like people have said that they do, and they'll unlatch at dusk or dawn or whatever. They don't do that. They really don't. They just bite through things.
Yeah. I like tortoises. I think that is a commitment because tortoises can live for a very long
very,
time.
very long time. Yes.
Yeah.
They had, I think 2, obviously, Galapagos tortoises at the Toledo Zoo just became parents at 100 and something years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they just released a bunch of them into the Galapagos Islands because they were becoming extinct in the Galapagos Islands. So they took like 172, not babies, but juvenile subadults to the island to repopulate. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, they're really cool animals.
I have a red-footed box tortoise. And I mean, they don't get very big. They only get about 12 inches around, but
Yeah.
I did some bartering. The lady needed some rats for her snakes and didn't really have a whole lot of money for it. So she traded me a tortoise.
So, how did you start doing the conventions?
That was a spur of the moment decision because I went to several expos. and seeing how they was doing things. And the only thing that I didn't really like about the big expos was that you don't really have a whole lot of room to actually look at the animals and stuff. Like you're elbow to elbow with people and you don't have that one-on-one interaction with the breeder and stuff. So you don't get that education. You get a snake handed to you or a lizard handed to you without any knowledge of when it was last fed, what does it eat, what's the enclosure size that it needs to be in. So I kind of brought something different to the Sydney area to begin with because we don't have a lot of things to do in Sydney.
Yeah.
Like we really don't. I've lived here my whole life and seen the same things over and over and over again. So just to bring something unique and different to Sydney and Piqua. Eventually we ended up going to Piqua and doing every month. So it's like every other month we was here in Sydney. The other months we were in Piqua. But it was just a unique experience for people to be able to bring their kids out to see all these different animals and hopefully potentially, at the next expo, maybe buy one and stuff. So I would have to say that the reptile industry in Sydney is probably partially due to my expos. But, we also provide the food for them too. We don't only put the expos on, we provide the food too. We raise and breed our own rats. We raise and breed crickets. And if the weather doesn't permit the crickets to be bred, we purchase them outside and resell them, just like anybody else does. But it was basically just to bring something unique and different to Sydney, my hometown.
Now, is this like your main job?
No, I actually work a full-time job.
I'm a find the time to do all this.
I don't. It's very tiresome to take care of that amount of animals. And, I work 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Sometimes I got to be in there at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I got to get up at 3 and everything. I'm a forklift operator outside of the reptiles. But really with the reptiles themselves, it's, my expos I put on. We took a year off because my husband had to have surgery. So we're just now bringing that back. Our next one is April 25th at the Piqua Center in Piqua, Ohio. It's going to be the biggest one yet. But we're just now bringing those back. I guess the outcome of this one will determine whether or not we're going to bring them back permanently. A lot of people have asked, when you bring the shows back, and I couldn't give an answer. So now I have an answer. The shows are coming back April 25th at the Piqua Center. Admission is free this time. Come in, see the animals, do all that, all that good stuff. But timing takes a lot of time management. I have to pick and choose what I'm going to do for the day. My husband, he helps out a lot. His actually part of the business is the rodents, the rats and everything. So he mainly does that during the day while I'm at work. Our oldest son, he helps out with that. He does the cleaning and the changing of the bedding and everything for the rats. I might do the watering and the feeding every now and then at nighttime when my son forgets. I mean, he's 18 years old. He's going to be a teenager, But for the most part, the reptiles with the educational shows, since those aren't every day or like even an every week thing, I get maybe 2 or 3 a month, if that. And stuff. So I'm trying to work on getting those up there and running. I've done a couple birthday parties here and there, and we would love to get more birthday parties, but it does cost.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, like even for a school function or anything, it's going to cost money because it takes time to be able to get the reptiles out of their enclosures. They're going to go into shock, going into a smaller enclosure just for, a display basically and stuff. They do very, very well with a bunch of kids touching them. And that was my main goal. I handled them every day to get them used to being touched by people, by kids, everything. So I'll take them out in my front yard. People, walk by the house and they'll see a snake in the yard. Oh, can I hold it? Absolutely. Sure. Go ahead. But time management, that's all it is. Because, I play sports outside of doing all this too. My kids play softball. I play softball. I coach, I ump.
Crazy.
That seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I sleep about 4 or 5 hours a night. So,
Yeah.
I wish.
but you can sleep when you're dead.
See, like, I have sleep apnea, so like I sleep like 8 hours, but I don't sleep 8 hours.
Right.
You know, so it's like,
I mean, I'm kind of in the same situation. I don't have sleep apnea, but I have to get up and go to the bathroom a lot and stuff. So, and I don't know if it's like a subconscious thing or whatever, but if I hear a random noise, I'm awake.
right.
I don't know if that's the mom in me or what, but wind blows outside the wrong direction. I'm like, what was that? You know? So I don't get a full solid 5 hours of sleep. It's
Right.
maybe a solid 2, 3 if I'm lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I think evolutionary, the like moms are supposed to wake up easier after they have kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Yeah.
Before kids, I could sleep through a freight train coming through the house. After kids, a pin drops a block away, I'm up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But mainly, it's like if I hear a noise in the reptile room, 9 times out of 10, it's because the snake's out of its enclosure. They do escape. They get out. It happens. I just go in there and I'm like, okay, this snake's out. Okay. And then I close the door because they can't get out of the reptile room anyway. There's no possible way for them to get out of the reptile room. So they'll just roam around in there and then I'll find them, a couple hours later and put them back in their enclosure. Usually it's my error because I didn't lock a latch or put a brick back on or something stupid, but
Yeah. My stepbrother had a ball python when I was growing up, and he always escaped his enclosure. But my stepmom was afraid of the ball python. So she would be like washing dishes and the snake's under the sink. Like,
yeah.
it would scare her so many times. She's like, you've got to keep this snake in the enclosure.
And some of them you can put as many bricks on their cages that you want, or even a little like key lock, and they're still going to find a way out. The ball pythons are called the Houdinis of the reptile world. So no matter what, they're gonna escape. So if you get a ball python, just plan on it escaping. You'll find it eventually and everything, but just plan on it escaping.
Yeah.
That's
He was a
good.
very like sweet snake.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't have any issues with that ball python, other than the fact it always scared my stepmom. So
Yeah.
yeah. Because there was one day she opened under the sink and thought it was a fake snake that he was like pranking her with.
Oh.
So she grabbed it and it was a fully alive snake. So
Oh, I could imagine my mom doing that.
yeah.
She was petrified of snakes. When we got our first ball python, I had it in a 75-gallon tank in my living room. And my mom wouldn't even come up and sit on my front porch. She would bring a lawn chair and she would sit out in the grass and everything. She's like, I've seen videos. They can open doors. I'm like, not those ones. The snakes I have now, yeah, they can open doors because they'll run their body up the doorknob and they will literally open the door. But ball pythons, no, they're not going to open a door. She never, even all the way up until she passed away, she never touched a snake, never looked at one of my snakes, anything.
Really?
My grandmother, on the other hand, who was also as petrified of snakes as her, she finally got to the point that she was able to pet one of my ball pythons. And it was the only ball python that she would pet. She wouldn't pet any of the other snakes that I had or anything like that. It was just the one specific ball python. Her name was Pythor. Still have her to this day. And she would take her finger and she would just gently touch the back of it. And she's like, okay, I'm done. It's like, I fought my fear. I'm done. I'm like, hey, at least you come into the house where the snakes are at. My mom, like I said, she went to her deathbed, not going in, not seeing any snakes.
Yeah. I feel like the ball python is very misunderstood because I've heard a lot of people say the whole, well, they're sizing you up to eat you.
Yep.
And it's like, they're not big.
No.
Yeah.
And the funny part about that is even the Burmese pythons that do the sizing up, or if you want to call it that, and the reticulated pythons, they're the biggest. The reticulated python's the biggest snake in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It literally outgrows the anaconda. It doesn't get as girthy as an anaconda, but it outgrows an anaconda. And there's only ever been one reported incident where one of the giant breed snakes actually ingested a human. And that was back in 1912. But the only way that it was able to ingest it was if you break the collarbone. And that's one of the hardest bones in the body to break. And a constrictor is just going to give up. They can't get past the human bone or the human shoulder width and everything like that. So for snakes to size you up to try to eat you, that's a complete myth. I've seen people sleep with their snakes before. As long as they're fed properly and maintained, they're not going to eat you. They're really not. Not even an anaconda.
Yeah.
But they do have wide expansions on their jaws that they could get past the human shoulders if they wanted to, but that's an awful lot of work for a snake that just has muscle strength.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to waste its strength.
And there's smaller things they can eat. You know? I mean,
Exactly. Yeah, like I said before, they're not out to get humans.
yeah.
And that's why it's the misconception, the misunderstanding and everything of the big breed snakes or any snake in general. My cousin, she was deathly afraid of snakes. And she's like, it's going to wrap around your neck and it's going to strangle you. And it was a ball python. Ball pythons, their maximum length is 6 foot long. Even in the wild, they don't get any bigger than 6 foot long. And that's a female. The males only get 5 foot long. Every now and then you'll come upon a different breed of ball python. Like there's the Volta ball pythons that will get about 8, 9 foot long. That's their max length. Super dwarfs, they get about 10, 11 foot long, even with the retics and stuff. My super dwarf that I have, she's about 10 foot long. She's not going to get any bigger. But like I said, they're not out to eat humans. They're not out to get humans. Rodents, chickens, turkeys, ducks, pigs, alligators. Yeah, they're going to get those, but humans, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a video of a reticulated python eating a pig, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
It
It is.
Yeah.
Especially their accuracy on their striking. One of the gentlemen that I used to follow on YouTube and everything, he passed away, I want to say 2 summers ago. Brian Barczyk. He owns the Reptarium up in Michigan and now the Legacy. I watched him feed one of his retics, and the whole thing where if it strikes you, it's going to wrap around you. If it strikes you, it's going to constrict you. If it strikes you, it's going to do this. They're only going to constrict around the area that they strike. So unless they strike you in the neck or in the face, they're not going to wrap around your head or anything like that. I literally watched him go to feed one of his retics, a frozen thawed rabbit. And she was in one of the top enclosures, and she missed the rabbit, and it landed down by his foot. So she actually struck his foot and started wrapping around his leg and everything. And he just stood there. I mean, not much you can do once you start getting wrapped around. So he just stood there. And once she realized that it wasn't the food, she let go. And that's common in all big snakes or anything like that. Like my retic bit my husband because he had just got done messing with the rats. And we moved him from one enclosure to the other so I could clean out his big enclosure. Bit his hand. And as soon as he bit his hand, he knew that it wasn't food. He knew it wasn't time to eat. And like he almost felt sorry. Like he slithered back down his little glass enclosure and just kept looking at my husband and everything. And he's like, I'm sorry. And my husband, his hand bled a little bit, but that was about it. No tooth got stuck, no tooth shed in his skin. That can happen, and it does happen. So that's what you got to watch out for with that. But it didn't even leave a bruise, really. Sometimes, like if you look up on Google, reticulated python bites, it'll show like the worst bites ever, and you'll have this massive bruise on one guy's leg, I think it was, and it's not like that at all. Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, the ball pythons aren't even that strong to wrap somebody up.
No.
No. You can peel one off pretty easily most of the time.
It's probably about the best neck massage you'll ever get.
Yeah.
That's about it, but it doesn't have enough strength to actually strangle a human
Yeah.
at all.
So the bites can hurt, but they can also just like not be that much.
Yeah. It's if you get bit even by the big snakes, unless it is a venomous, but most of the time it feels like a cat scratch. I've been bit by my ball pythons. My husband was bit by the retic and everything. He said it literally felt like a ginormous cat scratch. That was it. Like if you get severely scratched, like if you try to give a cat a bath and everything with water, how they're clawing at you. But yeah, it just feels like a cat scratch. It's not anything. I think the strike initially is what'll scare you. Kind of like a tattoo gun. The sound of the tattoo gun is actually what scares you and makes you nervous more than the tattoo itself. So the striking from a snake is actually what scares you, not the bite itself.
He wants you.
He does.
Looks like he's going to jump. Are you going to jump?
Wait.
I don't want you to fall on the ground, buddy.
That's why you catch him, you silly goose.
I've never touched a bearded python.
As a bearded dragon.
Yeah, bearded dragon, not viper. That would be crazy.
They're very spiky.
Yeah.
But he's not mad or anything because...
No.
Do you know why they're called bearded dragons?
Hmm.
Because when they go into defense mode, they puff out their beard and it'll actually turn black.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's why they're called bearded dragons.
It wasn't tough, but it was black when we got here because he was not having a good color.
Oh.
He just kept trying to jump down on my feet, and I wasn't letting him for obvious reasons.
Right.
It was really bad.
You've never touched one?
Nope.
Touch it.
I will later, but I don't want it to stop him.
I want it on camera.
Like, I like bearded dragons, but I don't know.
So soft.
Crazy. I'm sorry, I got distracted. The guy was gonna jump. He looked like it. Oh, I had a question again. He keeps distracting me from the
does.
questions. Yeah.
He's very curious, that's for sure.
Yeah, he is very curious.
They love their little side eyes.
So are the spikes like bones or?
No. They're just, I mean, they're like a form of bone, but it's one of their only defense mechanisms that they have. So when they feel intimidated to make themselves look bigger, kind of like the frilled dragons, how they kind of poof out their necks and everything, that's kind of like what they do. And so when they feel intimidated or they feel threatened, they'll puff out their beard and it'll turn black, like I said previously.
Yeah.
But they also puff out their body. They can make their body real flat, making them look tougher than what they are. Like, you call it spiking when you go to pick it up or whatever, and it spikes your hand, kind of like a catfish or a bluegill. So it's a form of bone. It's just part of their defense mechanism, just kind of like a ball python. The reason why they're called ball pythons is because in the wild, when like falcons come to grab them, like most birds do, they'll coil up into a ball. So with them coiled up into a ball, it throws their weight off. It makes them heavier. So when the falcons go to pick them up, they actually end up dropping them because they're too heavy for the falcons to carry rather than being stretched all the way out.
It's crazy.
Oh, Prefa.
There he goes.
Are you that afraid to touch him?
I'm not afraid to touch him. He's got spikes.
Well, he's not blackbearding.
No. He's being weird. He's just sitting there.
He likes you.
He does like you. He's been following you.
Crazy.
Had another question, but got distracted.
So is the reticulated python the largest reptile you've dealt with? Or?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep. Mine that I have at home right now is almost 12 foot long.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've held Burmese pythons. I have a Burmese python, but I've held like an adult Burmese python at the zoo down in Key West, Florida. I've held anacondas. I love anacondas too. My favorite is the yellow belly anaconda, but they're the more aggressive ones. But yeah, as far as giant breed snake, that's my personal one that I have is the biggest one that I've ever dealt with. The ones that I dealt with at the zoo in Key West was babies still.
Yeah, I worked at a exotic fish place in Tennessee. And we had a big room that had like a pit dug into it where we kept the axolotls. So like in the pit, we would keep worms, and then we had axolotls in tanks above the pit. And I was talking to the owners of the place. I'm like, why is there a pit in here? You could have done this without the pit. And they used to breed anacondas in the pit.
Oh.
It was a massive room. It was really big. And I was like, what do you mean you bred anacondas? They're like, yeah, Tennessee made selling anacondas illegal. I'm like, I didn't think it would be legal in the first place. So they just used to have a bunch of anacondas. The axolotl is a cool animal too.
Yeah, it is a very cool animal. Very high maintenance.
Yeah.
You can say.
Well,
like
you
a
have to keep
chameleon.
the water at a certain temperature.
Yep.
They freak out.
Certain temperature, certain pH level.
Yeah.
They only eat certain foods. Like it's not one of your typical exotic animals where they'll basically eat anything. But yeah.
And they need to have company.
Yes.
Like they're very social. That does mean they normally bite each other's arms off. It seems like for fun.
In some certain situations, yes.
Because they regrow their limbs. So every so often, one of the axolotls would just bite off another axolotl's arm, and we would have to separate them until they had a chance to heal. But
Yep.
I loved the axolotls, and then they had some different types of lizards and stuff there, but they weren't for sale with the fish. They
Yeah.
were just like pet lizards that lived on the property.
And that's how some exotic pet stores are. Like
Yeah.
outside your chain stores like Chow Hound and Petco and stuff like that I'm sorry, but don't really know what they're doing when it comes to reptiles and stuff. They just kind of order them and sell them.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
How you felt about this?
The chain stores doing it, I wholeheartedly discriminate against it. I know that's going to sound bad coming from a reptile person, but some of the employees that these chain stores have, these franchise stores have, they don't know the proper care of the reptiles that they're getting in. Like Chow Hound here in Sydney, they used to call me and have me or the other herpetologist and everything. They would have us come in and, sex the snakes or make sure that it was a ball python and not, some other snake or, stuff like that. If you have to reach out to an outside source because you don't know the animal that you purchased that you're trying to resell, that's a red flag in my opinion.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if you want healthy, well-kept reptiles, go to your nearest expo. Go to a reptile-specific pet store and everything like that. Don't go to a pet store that also sells dog food, cat food, because they're unless, now, don't get me wrong, some of the employees, they might know a lot and everything, but it's the individual store itself that don't really know a whole lot. And you can only deal with, the people that have some knowledge of what's in there. You can go into any of these pet stores. I know for a fact Petco has regular, normal ball pythons listed as fancy ball pythons just so they can sell them for a little bit more. If you go to Petco and you buy a fancy ball python, you're going to spend $80 to $110. You go to an expo, you're only going to spend about $50 or $60.
Jeez.
And it's a well-kept, purebred ball python, because normally the breeders that go to the expos, that's their main job. And that's all they care about. They live and they breathe ball pythons. They breed them for specific genetics. They breed them for certain patterns. They breed them just to see if they can get world's first. They breed them every single year, all year round, So they're going to know a lot more about that specific snake. Like they keep cards of when that snake was fed or what that snake is eating, how often it should be fed, and they will give you the card when you purchase the snake. You don't get that from a franchise pet store. You don't, that's just something you don't get. You can be like, oh, well, when was it fed? Oh, I don't know. I wasn't here when it got fed last. When you ask a breeder at an expo, well, when was this snake last fed? They can give you an exact date and time that snake was fed. Out of all the hundreds of snakes that they have in their snake room and everything, they can give you an exact time and date that snake was fed.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, we had similar issues with the fish place because we had a lot of exotic fish. None of them ate like fish flakes.
Right.
You have to feed them specific stuff. So anytime you would sell a fish, it's like, hey, this is what their diet has to be. This is what the water temperature has to be. Like you gave them a list of things to take care of that fish. Because people just think they can buy the generic stuff and it doesn't work.
Yeah. And some people think that about reptiles and stuff. Some breeders will start their snakes on live rats. So it'll be like a live pinky or a live pup or whatever. And then most pet stores don't sell live rats. If they do, more than likely they're getting them from us. Especially if they're anywhere close in the vicinity. My personal opinion for frozen or live is I feed all of mine live or fresh kill, meaning that we literally will snap its neck before it goes into, I know that sounds gruesome, but it's the most humane way to kill a rat. Don't come at me. It's better than gassing them or anything like that. So it's the most humane way. It's the fastest way. They don't feel no pain at all. So we literally just internally decapitate them and throw them into the thing. This is going to sound bad, but they're still kind of twitching the nerves and everything. So that's what draws the snake to it. Most of your python family don't see like you and I do. They see in red and blue. So they see hot and they see cold. They see hot, that means food. Unless they're specifically trained not to go after certain, like your hand. But so it's easier to get a snake to go from frozen thawed to live than it is to go from live to frozen thawed. So like if you do get a snake or whatever, and it's your first snake, you want to make sure that you ask the breeder, are they feeding live or are they feeding frozen thawed? Frozen thawed, you have to make sure that it is at the specific temperature, which is about 98 to 100 degrees, because that snake is going to be able to sense whether or not that animal is alive or not. To me, my personal opinion, live feedings are always better, because when you have a snake in captivity or any animal in captivity, you take away 90% of their natural ability. It'd be no different than a human being hand feeding their child their whole life. So if you frozen thawed, you're going to have to feed that snake its whole life with a pair of tongs or a pair of your hand or whatever. You're going to have to feed that snake your whole life, its whole life, by hand, rather than just tossing a rat in there. Right. Now, don't get me wrong, they will get bit. They will get bit by a rat. They can heal themselves, just like alligators in the swamps. Alligator gets a limb bit off, it doesn't die. It's got a bacterial defense mechanism inside of itself where it will not get infections. It will not die of an infection. It'll simply heal that spot, kind of like, what is that called? Cauterizing?
Yeah.
Burn it? Kind of like that. Yeah. And they heal themselves.
And humans suck.
They do.
We do heal.
Not like that, though.
It's not the same way. Sometimes Neosporin helps, but do you? I'm wearing like dress pants today. I don't know why. And he is sliding all over the place. He has not stayed very still this entire time.
You must be
It's
like
okay.
really warm or something.
I am a warm person. I think one of my cats cuddles with me a lot because of that.
And that's why the bearded dragon is
Yeah.
on you, because you're a very
Yeah, I'm very warm, but that's okay. He's just vibing.
So if this expo at the Piqua Center goes well, do you have any plans to like kind of like reach out further distances with the expo, or just keeping it local?
I kind of want to just keep it local and everything, so that way when I do things like this or whatever, it's locally done. Just like you guys are locally done and everything. I think the more attention that we can bring to our area and kind of put it back on the map, especially the Piqua Center. The Piqua Center used to be popping back in the 90s, with the mall and the arcade and the theater and everything. Like I went there on the weekends all the time and just hung out. And people don't do that anymore. So if you can do something in your community or, a community that's close by to bring that attention back to them, why not keep it local? Right. I mean, there's plenty of expos out there. There's a expo called the Tinley Expo. It's based in Chicago and stuff. It's literally the world's largest expo, where they've got vendors that come from hundreds of thousands of miles away. And I mean, I'm a small-ish expo and stuff, so I don't get a lot of vendors from like California or anything like that, but I do get vendors from Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, obviously Ohio. I've had some come down from Michigan. And then with those vendors that come from those states, they have a following. So their people are going to follow too and stuff like that. I was once told that there was too many expos in Ohio. And with me being a female in a male-dominated industry, my expos was never going to work. My expos at one point in time, before we took the year break, was one of the top 10 rated in Ohio.
Yeah, that's impressive. Because there are a decent number of different types of expos and stuff in Ohio. So that is impressive.
It took a lot of hard work and a lot of arguments and tears and sweat, and blood and everything. And I honestly didn't think that it took that much to put on an expo. But the very first expo that we did, I think I messaged probably 30 plus vendors that I had gotten their cards from other expos and stuff like that. And I kept getting told no. There's already too many. There's this, there's that. You got this expo going on this date. You got this expo going on that day. So a little bit of researching and a little bit of digging and everything, finding out when the other expos around me was going on and trying to schedule around them and stuff, that made it a little bit harder. But all it took was one person finally saying yes. And then once that person said yes, it kind of got my encouragement back up because I was about to give up. I mean, after 30 no's,
Right.
what other person would keep going? So finally I got that one yes, and it kind of lit the spark back, and I started messaging more vendors. I think I messaged in total about 150 vendors, and at my first show, I had 15 vendors, which was at the fairgrounds in a small building. So they kind of was a little bit packed in there, but they were spaced out enough to where you could see the animals, you could see the vendor or the breeder and everything. You could talk to the breeder. And that's how I differentiated myself from all the other expos. And like I said, I went to multiple expos to be able to get that encouragement and everything. Okay, well, you guys do it this way. I'm going to do it this way. See if I can bring in more people. I think the highest amount of people we had through the door was at the Piqua show, one of the very last Piqua shows that we did. We had almost 2,000 people through the door.
Gee.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Mm-hmm. Especially for that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the rules and regulations from Sydney to Piqua on people owning reptiles is a dramatic difference. In Sydney, they go by the Ohio laws where you don't have to have a permit for anything that's under 12 foot. Once the animal gets to 12 foot and over, you have to have a permit. Sydney don't do that. Sydney goes by Ohio laws. Miami County, on the other hand, and Piqua specifically, you have to have a permit for anything that gets over 6 foot. Most ball pythons get right to 6 foot.
Yeah.
If you want a super dwarf reticulated python, they get about 10 foot. So you're going to have a permit for that if you live in Piqua, which is understandable. I'm not ragging on Piqua for their rules and regulations, but there's reasons why we have those rules and regulations. There's reasons why Ohio has the rules and regulations that they do, and it's because of irresponsible exotic pet owners.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the irresponsibility or you get caught doing something that you're not supposed to do and you just release your animals, that's why we have all the rules and regulations that we have in Ohio. When it comes to reptiles, when it comes to bears, when it comes to tigers, lions, and stuff like that, you have to have the proper permits to be able to own any of those. You have to have the proper permits to even buy any of those. You can't go buy an Arctic fox without the breeder being a USDA certified breeder.
Yeah.
It's just how people put dampers on things. It really is. He's just chilling over there.
He's just chilling.
So what are some things that like stick out to you that you've learned through previous expos that you've done that you kind of have like prepared for this upcoming one?
Spacing.
Anything else outside of the spacing?
Not really, just spacing. Spacing when it comes to reptile expos is probably the biggest complaint that you'll get, where you can't walk through the expo. You can't, you have to wait forever in line to be able to see just this specific vendor that you want to go see and stuff like that. Now I do, before I even message a vendor, I will go through their Facebook page. I will go see how their animals look and everything. So I do extensive background checks without doing a background check, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure that the vendors that are coming to my shows they're bringing healthy animals. They're not importing these animals and then going straight from import to the table. If you're importing animals and everything, I want you to specifically state, yes, I imported this animal, but it was in quarantine for this long and everything before I brought it to a show. And a lot of people don't do that. And you can definitely tell the difference. Like an imported animal, a wild caught animal would be your savanna monitors, some black-throated monitors and stuff like that, mainly monitors. Chameleons, a lot of them are wild caught, and people don't even realize it when they go to an expo. They're buying an animal, and savanna monitors, and specifically when they're wild caught, they carry internal parasites. If the internal parasite is not treated, it can kill the animal. And unfortunately, I got stuck with that a few years back when I bought 2 Savannah monitors. The one's still alive and thriving because after the other one had passed is when I found out that they were wild caught and that it had parasites. So I had to start treating the other one for parasites immediately, and she's still alive to this day.
That's crazy.
So that's what I learned from other expos is how to treat the customers that are coming through the door. And if you treat the vendors like family and you're not just there to make $1 off of them, you actually go to them and ask them how they're doing, if they need anything, if they need water, if they need anything to drink, we'll go get you water, we'll go get you food, we'll go get you what you need, just as long as you are comfortable. And that's what my expo is different from other expos. We're family oriented. We want you to bring the family out. We want you to have a good time with the family, but we also want you to have that connection with the breeders as well. We want you to be able to reach out to those breeders if anything happens to the animal that you just purchased, or if you have a question because something didn't seem right or whatever, reach out to that breeder and they're going to respond. That's why I do my expos the way I do my expos, because I want them to be close knit, I guess.
Yeah.
And fun to go to, not a headache or a hassle to go to because you went to an expo that has 100+ vendors, but you was only able to see 20 of them because you couldn't get through to the rest. So space.
Yeah. So what are some things that people can expect? Like if it's their first time to go to your expo in April?
Probably to see animals that you've never seen in your life. I mean, that's kind of the expectation of going to any reptile expo, not just mine. It's to see the animals and experience the atmosphere and everything, and be able to come in close contact with animals that you typically don't get to come in close contact with. And it's a fun experience. It really is. Even if you're just going there to look or just walk around, it's a fun experience. The kids will love it. I know that. They really will. And they'll try their hardest to talk the parents into buying a reptile and stuff. So then that parent is going to go home and they're going to do the research that they need for that reptile. And then the next expo that comes around, they're going to buy that reptile. And if they like the vendor, if they like the breeder, they're going to buy from that specific vendor. And that's what's going to keep the vendors coming back to the expos, because they had that interaction, they had that sale, they had, the questions and everything, and they answered those questions. I wouldn't really say mine are significantly different than the other reptile expos. We're just more family oriented.
Yeah. And I think that's a nice thing about trying to stay local too, is you can stay family oriented.
Exactly.
Yeah. If it gets too big, it gets tough.
It does. I mean, even as the reptile or the rodent breeder, it's gotten tough in that area because I'm trying to provide the pet stores with their rats that they need and everything, and the local people, my local customers and stuff. Like I have people that come from Bell Fountain to buy rats from me, and sometimes I can't keep up with the orders, so I had to up the rack system and I had to up the amount of rats that we had. At one point in time, we had 2,000 adult rats. Yeah. and they come in heat every 3 to 4 days, and they have litters every 6-7 days. Don't.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Hey, we're not quite young enough for that.
I hear it all the time though. Every time I say something about 6 or 7, they're like 6, 7.
Yeah.
This shit's on my nerves.
I know you had a question. I blocked you off earlier.
Yeah. If somebody wanted to try to become a vendor at like an expo, do you have advice for that?
Don't think that it's quick money, because it's not. It is very time consuming. And if you want to become a breeder, please do your research. Be very specific on the genetics that you have and everything. One of my ball pythons has 27 different genes in her. And it's hard to narrow it down to the main dominant genes and stuff like that. But if you're going to do it, don't think that you're going to get rich off of doing it, because you're not. There's too many breeders out there, especially with ball pythons. If you're going to do breeding with anything, do it with something other than ball pythons. That's oversaturated. I mean, you can find, I got a ball python at home that 4 years ago, she was valued at $5,000. Her value is about $300 now because it's that oversaturated.
Gee.
But yeah, don't come into the reptile industry thinking that it's quick money, because it's not. There's a lot of time and money that goes into it. You're probably going to spend more money into the business than you are getting out of the business. It's going to take years and years and years for you to even break even or make any profit at all. I've been doing my husband's been doing the rodents for about 4 years now. And just within the past year and a half to 2 years, it's became profitable. Before that, it was not. We were losing money before that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it takes so much time, and you got to think about the food and everything. If you're going to be a snake breeder, you might as well be a rat breeder too. Otherwise, you're going to spend buku's amounts of money of getting the food that you need for these snakes. They have to have food to live, and they have to have food to breed, and then you got to feed all of the babies. A ball python clutch can be anywhere between 8 to 10 eggs, if not more. A reticulated python can lay upwards of 88 eggs. And you have to feed all of them babies until you're able to sell them. And if you can't sell them, then you're stuck with them. So that's where you'll lose money, gain money, or anything like that. And like I said, just don't think that you're coming into it to make quick money. Don't come into it thinking that you're going to get rich off of it, within a year or two of doing it, because it's just not going to happen. I've been doing it for 5 years straight, and I've been studying and researching them for over 30 years. And I'm not rich off of it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's tough because most businesses, you're going to start out at a loss.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure it's worse with animals because you have to spend a lot of money to sustain it.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of businesses, it's like startup cost,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to count in operating cost. That's just expensive the entire way through. So,
Yeah. And with being in an animal industry, especially the reptile industry, it's going to be harder for, even if you are a small business, it's going to be harder for you to get the small business loans or the grants that you need because you're in the animal industry. And then if you want to take vacation, you might as well forget that, unless you're only going to go for like a day or two, because finding somebody to be able to take care of the animals while you are gone, that's going to be even more time consuming. Not very many people want to come take care of, 42 reptiles and 2,000 rats.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
So, I mean, if you don't want to go on vacations, don't want to have time for hardly anything, then you can come into the reptile industry. But other than that, I wouldn't.
That's crazy.
Unless it's,
Imagine.
yeah, unless you're really, really into reptiles like I am, that industry isn't something for quick money. It's not.
Yeah. Did you have any more questions, Eric?
Mm-mm.
If somebody wanted to get into like the rescue and everything, do you have any advice for them?
The only thing that I can say with that is, again, make sure you're educated and reach out to people. A lot of people want to start these rescues and everything, and they just think that just because they make a couple Facebook posts that people are going to call them and be like, hey, we got this reptile here. We need help. Even myself, I still have to make multiple posts a day. Not only do we do education, but we also do rescue and removal and stuff like that. Do your education or do your research. Make sure you're educated, because water moccasins, they look so close to copperheads. They look so close to cottonmouths. Make sure you know the different types of snakes that we have here in Ohio. Make sure that you know how to properly and humanely remove the animal from where it's at and safely relocate it somewhere else. Do your extensive research first. But by all means, with that part of the business, please, we need more help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's not very many people that want to do that either.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Like I said, there's only 2 certified herpetologists in all of Shelby County.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on. I think this went great.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for watching the Jellyfish Manifesto. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You can find out all of Crystal's stuff in the description below.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Bye.